starting in order that we've got on the slide there. Michelle, take it away.
Hi, my name is Michelle Montoya, and I'm a recruiter with United Rentals. We are the largest rental company in the world, so we rent everything from small handheld tools to large excavators. We typically have about 150 interns, give or take. Last summer, we only had about 15. Because of COVID, we are still kind of looking at if we're going to be doing interns this summer. It really just depends. As everyone else, we're not really sure. But we do expect to be hiring some full-time graduate students after you've graduated into some of our programs. So we are looking to do that into an inside sales role or to a sales associate role. So, and we work very closely with that state. We've been working with them for a number of years and really enjoy meeting with you. We meet with the students and getting to know them.
Wonderful, thank you. And Annie, would you like to go next?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Annie Borders with Sherwin-Williams. We are the largest paints and coatings company in the world with about $16 billion in sales and over 4,000 store locations worldwide. And so we are hiring right now. So I have openings available in our management and sales training program. And so that's really where you're learning the ins and outs of our business starting in the retail store. So you would be working in one of our many stores that you see and learning about sales and management in that role. So we have openings now for December grads and for May grads, as well as internships. The internships aren't currently posted online. Those probably won't be posted until around January, but we're still looking to connect. Myself, as well as our district manager and a few sales representatives, will be at the upcoming career fairs. So make sure to connect with us, even if you are looking for an internship, so that we can get your name on a list and be looking for your application in January.
That sounds wonderful. We like to hear about these great internship and job opportunities. So this is good news. Erica, are you here? I don't know if I saw you come in. Erica from Vanguard, or maybe not yet. I need to go make sure she's not trying to call me. Dan, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself next, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, everyone. My name is Dan Grassel. I'm a graduate of App State. I graduated in 2012. Going through the computer information systems and supply chain programs. I was a member of AITP, Alpha Iota Nu, and the Student Veterans Association. I'm currently with RSM, and I've been here for 2 years. For those that don't know, RSM is the 5th largest public accounting firm in the world. We have international operations as well as a network of firms, as well as offices located throughout the U.S. Check the site. There's a plethora of opportunities in each of those offices. We are hiring for interns and associates coming in the, our internship is typically in the July timeframe, so for 2021, and then associates typically onboarding either in December or late summer of 2021. For those that aren't aware, in a public accounting firm, typically you've got your traditional tax and audit arms. I'm in the sort of catch-all that's not in that space. I don't touch any tax returns or do any financial advising or anything along those lines. I'm in our advisory practice. So I do technology risk consulting. And that's what I'll be talking specifically to is our technology risk consulting practice. And then I can answer some questions about our process risk for people that are less on the information systems side.
That sounds really interesting. Cool. I'm glad you're here to talk about it. So, Erica, one last try to see if you are here and we just don't see you. If not, I will stop sharing my screen, and that way we don't have to look at the slide while you all answer some questions. So, students are always asking us this question about an in-person career fair, but this is a burning question for the virtual fair. What are your expectations in terms of professional dress?
I am expecting you, at least the top that's going to show in that camera, to be somewhat professional. You know, I don't want to see a dirty t-shirt. You know, and I would also stress, I can't stress enough too, the lighting. We want to be able to see you. We don't, you know, so make sure that practice your lighting. I'm making sure that, you know, it's just you. There's nothing in the background that could be taken the wrong way, or even if you have to put like a sheet behind you. But really that lighting and making sure that at least the portion that shows in the camera is professional.
Yep, I think that's really good advice. We have a saying in the office, and it's dress for the day. So if I don't have client meetings, I can wear jeans and you know, a polo or you know, a button-down dress shirt. If I've got client meetings, then basically whatever that client has as their traditional dress code, they're probably going to the office in, and I want to make them feel comfortable. So if you had an opportunity to kind of get a feel for the corporate culture for the company that you're talking to, look to either mimic that or take it a step above, right?
Yeah, I agree with that too. I mean, you're not going anywhere, so wearing half of a suit is not that hard if you have one available. You only have to wear half of it. Just don't stand up during the call. But yeah, we are expecting professional dress, or at least like a collared shirt, a button up, or like a nice blouse for the ladies. But you're not going anywhere. You're sitting at home. So take a few minutes to get dressed before these career fairs.
Thank you. That's all really great advice. I especially appreciated what you said, Michelle, about being mindful of what's in your background. It probably shouldn't be your pillow because you're still in bed with your laptop, right? That might not be the best way to make an impression. But yes, I thought that was all great advice. Thank you for sort of clearing that up for us, because we weren't really sure what you all expected. And so that's very helpful for students. What
Veronica?
about, yeah.
I think that Erica is coming to the Zoom call.
Oh, wonderful. Erica, are you here?
I am. I'm so sorry for being late. Technical issues.
That's okay. I'm so glad you're here. I was worried you didn't have the right Zoom link, but it's a relief to see you. Will you please introduce yourself? Tell us just a little about the company and what you're hiring for.
Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Erica Faux, and I am the University Relations Lead here at Vanguard's Charlotte, North Carolina office. Vanguard is a financial investment institution. No, we're not a bank. Think about the New York Stock Exchange. So everything from mutual funds, stocks and bonds, retirement accounts, we all support. We accept all majors for the business roles that we have here. And for IT, we accept all computer science, IT related roles. And we're recruiting right now for internships and full-time opportunities.
That sounds wonderful. So let's ask you the question I just asked the other panelists. What is your expectation in terms of professional dress in a virtual fair?
Yes, I would say whatever you do on the bottom half of your body is your decision, right? But for the top half of your body, anything that just covers up your shoulders, right? So for females, if that's a blouse, make sure you don't have too much cleavage or, you know, shoulders showing. For males, that could be maybe just a button up. If you want to put on a blazer, that's fine, but that's not required. Our crew, they come pretty casual, business casual dress. So we expect kind of that same, but nothing to the nature of like hoodies or crew necks or anything like that.
Thank you. And can I just say, please be clothed regardless, right? So that is wonderful. So how about this question? What is the best thing a student could do to impress you at a virtual fair, and how is that different from an in-person fair?
I'll take this one. I was giving some students some advice earlier today, actually, on a career fair. But one great thing about a virtual fair is you can have a cheat sheet pulled up in front of you before these fairs, especially if you're using a platform like Handshake. You're signing up to talk to us before, so you know what company you're going to talk to. So go to the website, look and see what roles we have available, what roles that you would be interested in, and have that cheat sheet pulled up. So whenever you hop on for the one-on-one, you're like, hey, I went to your website and I saw you have this role and I applied to it, or I saw you don't have this role, when's it going to be available? You have all of this right at your fingertips. You don't have to be fumbling around with a folder like you do in person. So I think being prepared, honestly, for me is a little more expected at these fairs because you have the time, because you're signing up beforehand and you have Google right in front of you.
Yeah, absolutely. The preparedness is really what I'm looking for. The candidates that I've interviewed, you know, I can kind of see their eyes skirting off to the side of the screen, and it doesn't bother me one bit. I mean, there's a difference between never making eye contact and me knowing that, hey, you came prepared, you've got a list of questions, you're invested in the role that you're talking through. You've done your homework and like looked up my profile on LinkedIn, so you can talk to me a little bit about my background since I'm talking yours. Things like that that really show that you went the extra mile is really important. And they're even more important now that you've got that technology at your fingertips and can kind of get away with it, so to speak.
Yeah, I would echo what Annie and Dan have said. And I also think too, to be engaged, making sure that, you know, you're sitting up, that you're smiling, that you're not doing anything else, that you're focused on that career fair, because the time you have in that virtual career fair, you really want to stand out. So if you can be engaged and smiling and paying attention and asking some questions, because like Annie said, you have Google right in front of you. So I'm going to expect you to know a little bit about my company than you would say just walking around that big room that we have typically.
Erica, you might be double muted. Oh. Anyone a good lip reader?
Veronica, I think she wants us to just go ahead and move on.
Yeah.
Veronica, you might be muted as well.
It's a trend. Okay,
Yeah.
our next question is, what are some major, or have you seen any major faux pas in a virtual career fair setting? So I always love the employer stories of the guy that showed up with a bathing suit and flip-flops, or the student that came up to the table and said, so tell me about your company, right? Clear that they haven't done their research. What have you seen in a virtual setting that is also something not desirable?
Not seeing your entire face. You know, like for instance, I can give you an example. That's what we see. Eating, don't eat. Don't be popping gum. You know, you're at a career fair. This is professional. Those are the two major things I've seen where it's just half your face, or it's not your face at all and it's your ceiling. So it really does kind of turn me off. If I see you eating or if I see your ceiling, I'm not really going to pay too much attention.
Yeah, and I think Michelle touched on this earlier, was not cleaning up your background. I know I've got a busy background, but I'm more often than not get to talk about something other or outside of work. So I think it's fine to have something in your background. So I don't mean to call attention to it, but John, I think you've got a really interesting and clean background. It makes me want to ask you some questions about that. That's totally fine. But yeah, a pillow or, you know, an obvious mess in your room that's going to probably not shed the greatest light on you.
Yeah, I had an interesting one the other day in a group setting kind of like this. A candidate was vaping while on the call. So let's not do that. No vaping on the call. Hopefully you can wait a few minutes if you need to do that. So I think that goes along with like Michelle was saying about eating and drinking and all of that. I would keep vaping for later as well.
Good
And
advice.
I think Cassidy and Noah, your background is fine because it looks like you're in a public place, and that is perfectly acceptable. It doesn't have to be, you know, a background like mine or a background like John's, but, you know, just making sure that it is, you know, as minimal as possible.
Can you all hear me now?
Yes, yay.
Yes.
Okay, all right. To echo everything that I heard, I agree with that. To kind of share a little bit of story, I would say treat webinars like this, workshops as you're in, almost like interviews as well, especially if you're going to be present via camera. We hosted a professional development workshop in May, right when the height of COVID was happening, and we actually had a candidate who was making TikTok videos on camera, but she didn't realize that her camera was off, her desktop webcam was off, and so like the whole crowd was watching her do this, and it took away from the presenter. And needless to say, she didn't move forward in the hiring process. But just be very mindful. I'm learning today through all of my technical issues. But if you need to step away, if you have a very noisy background, just do little things like mute yourself, stop the video, and communicate what's going on via chat. But just be mindful, because you think that you're on mute and you're not, and you say something that you don't mean, right?
Really good advice. And what about, since we didn't get to hear from you last time, Erica, the best thing a student can do to impress you in a virtual setting and how that's different from in person?
Yes, what I was trying to say, I agree with everyone else, but go a step further what you see on the company's website, right? I would love for you to come in and ask me questions that are not necessarily there that is clear, right? So if you see that Vanguard is really involved in the community and you're passionate about that, say, well, hey, I'm really passionate about giving back. I would love to learn about what you've done in the community or what you have been involved in, right? Take it a step further, because every candidate's coming in saying, hey, I applied, what's next? Or, hey, what opportunities are next? Or, hey, how long is the recruitment process? Like, yeah, I can tell you that's gonna be 2 rounds, and then what? What's your next question, right? But go a step further and really make that connection intentional. Make sure that you're getting information that you would want to know if you were getting an offer letter, right? What would be something that you would need to know about that company that would be like your game changer for saying yes or no?
Very good advice. And it makes me think of some advice as career coaches we give students when they're researching companies, which is look at their mission and value statement, because you want to work someplace where you resonate with that aspect of a company. And I think that gets into kind of that deeper level that you're talking about, Erica. So good advice for all the students from you all. Thank you. In a in-person career fair setting, employers often share with students that the best time to meet with them is not at the end of the day when they're starting to pack up. So in a virtual fair setting, what do you advise students in terms of when is the best time to sign up for those group sessions or that one-on-one session, or maybe it doesn't matter?
I would say in the virtual setting, at least for me and my coworkers, it doesn't really matter. We're going to be there the entire time, at least one of us. We've set aside that time for you. We're not going anywhere, and it's not like I have to fight traffic or I have to hop on a plane. I'm here. So, in the virtual setting, at least for me, it doesn't really matter. Yeah.
I will say I was using a platform last week where the students didn't have the opportunity to sign up like for a specific time slot. They just waited in a queue, and it was an all-day fair, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. And I was about to click log off, and I had somebody get on right at 4. I was like, are you still available? And thankfully I didn't have a meeting scheduled at 4. I didn't have one till 4:30. So I did have a few extra minutes to chat with them. But I would say if you're in something to where you have a long amount of time and you're not signing up for a specific time slot, to not wait until the very last second to hop on there. Like Michelle said, we have the time allotted, blocked off. We'll be there, but I don't plan to be there any longer because I probably have something else going on.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if there's an ideal time because, your interviewer or the person you're speaking with might be a morning person or, an evening person, whatever it may be. If you have an opportunity to sign up when you're bringing your best self. You know how you operate. If you're not going to get moving and be firing all cylinders until the afternoon and they've got that time available, do that. Take advantage of that opportunity. I don't think it's the best practice to someone 1 minute before the session is supposed to end by any means, but take advantage of what this virtual environment's affording you, and kind of select what works best for you, pending that it's available.
I agree with everyone else. I had, I don't know if you all do any events on Career Echo, but Career Echo was the platform where we set a time block from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., but we had students join at 12:05, and I didn't know that it was even possible if we had set a time block. So just kind of be mindful of reading those details. We still stay to chat with that candidate, but that is something that you want to be mindful of. And I'm going to go ahead and mute myself because my dogs are barking.
So I agree with everybody, and I'd like to add that one thing that's an advantage for students, I think in some ways some students have seemed a little maybe intimidated by the virtual platform, the fact that they have to create their schedules, but it's such an advantage. You're not waiting in line behind a bunch of other students to talk to a busy, crowded, exasperated recruiter who's been there for hours, right? And you also know exactly who you're going to see when. So to speak to what Dan was saying earlier, you can do your research, you can show that you've really prepared for that interaction, have your cheat sheet. I think it really gives students a great advantage, and it's not just a Zoom room that you wander in and out of. It's very deliberate and structured, and I think it's going to be a successful experience for everybody. Best advice to students for making the most of a virtual fair. Maybe sort of what you mentioned before, or is maybe a better question is there anything about the virtual environment that you weren't expecting or that surprised you, for those of you that have already done virtual career fairs? What are your thoughts?
I would say for me, what surprised me is the level of detail. This is more on the employer side, right? But the level of detail that goes into preparing for these fairs, when in regards to setting up your virtual booth, getting your representatives upskilled to utilize that platform. So, we've done a lot to prepare to be there for you all. So we really expect kind of the same thing. You come in to our booth prepared to ask really specific, intentional questions about your career opportunities. Or our career opportunities, excuse me.
Yeah, definitely being intentional with your time and the recruiter's time. So I know with career fairs, you typically can kind of wander around, see what someone has offering, right? And here, it's got to be very targeted. Sorry, I lost my place. Where did we go? Oh, I'm sorry. So yeah, typically you've got a couple of people that are from a company representing that you can go and talk to and get their perspective, and it's not just that one individual. And because of the technological limitations, then you're likely going to be limited to talking to that one person that you had signed up for. I've had a couple of people that said, hey, I really appreciated chatting with you. Are you okay if I send you my resume or I contact you through email? And would you mind putting me in touch with just one additional person from your company? I'd like to get to know and hear their perspective. And I thought that was really insightful. It helped them work through the organization. They ended up getting up and getting to speaking to a partner after 2 or 3 emails. That initiative was something that was appreciated by all. And it really lets you see as an individual or as a potential candidate, is what that person, what they're selling me effectively on their company, is it consistent throughout? Am I hearing conflicting stories? Is there something else anecdotal that, makes me more interested in them? So I think that might be a good nugget for other people to take advantage of or steal.
Yeah, I think something that has been surprising for me is honestly the lack of attendance from students on some of the fairs, because why would you not attend this? We're hiring, we're looking for students, and in my opinion, as a student, this is way easier than walking around a giant auditorium in a suit where you probably just ran there from class with your book bag on. You just have to log on for a few minutes and be really intentional, like Dan was saying, about who you want to connect with. And like Erica was saying, we put a lot of effort into this, preparing for these fairs. Like I was talking about, tomorrow I have 4 fairs that I've had to upskill an entire team to be able to support those. So we're putting time and effort into this. So sometimes I'm just surprised that the students aren't showing up to these. So for everybody that's on this call that's a student, come to the career fairs. We have time available to speak to you. We want to hire you. tell your friends, come to the fair.
Yeah, because employers, especially now with everything being how it is, our budgets are tight. So sometimes, whereas before we may have just attended to kind of see what's out there, kind of, tread the, keep the relationship going. But I know for my company now, we've been very targeted. We want to make sure that we're going to have positions available. So we are hiring, we have positions, and I'm sure all the other employers, they are hiring. That's why they're there. They're not there to just give you information. They're there to hire you. And in this COVID world, that's pretty phenomenal that there are employers out there. And I agree with Annie and everyone else that the attendance has been shocking to me. So if you're just kind of wondering what's out there, come to the career fair. You can still talk to me and ask me, so tell me a little bit about your company, what kind of jobs do you have available, what's your culture like. That, you don't have to say to me, hey, I'm interested in this particular role. So please keep that in mind as well. But don't ask me, who are you? At least know who I am, my company.
Wonderful. So one last question for me, and then we are going to let you students ask your questions to the employers via the chat. So if you've got a burning question that you would like to ask them, this is your chance. Sloan will be reading those out in order, and we'll cover as many as we can. If you've got questions we can't get to in our allotted time, we'll look at that later and try to get back to you and answer your question. So last question for you employers before we move on to the Q&A session is, how do you want students to follow up? Do you want them to share their resumes? How should they follow up a group session or a one-on-one session?
So I've been sharing my email with students and letting them know, hey, you can shoot me an email afterwards to follow up with your resume. You can apply online, or on the Handshake platform, you can message back and forth with recruiters on there. So a few different options, but I would say definitely ask for the email of whoever you're speaking with and follow up. Just say, hey, it's nice chatting with you. Bring up a nugget of information y'all talked about and share your resume there, as well as apply online.
I would agree with that. So in regards to the events that I've supported, I know that we often receive the resume books on the back end. So if you'd like to follow up with your resume, that's great, but it's not required. If you do follow up, something that I specifically love to see, and Bethany, you posed this as a great question, is just some very intentional questions about the culture or what to expect in the interview process, right? So if you want to learn a little bit more about someone's specific career path and want to meet with a crew member in IT who you could potentially just do an informational interview with, like, ask me something that I can give you, right? I can give you really great insight and information because I can say right now, I've had about 10 students reach out and say, hey, here's my resume and I've applied. And it's like, okay, great. Do you need anything from me though? Do you need anything? And most times they don't, right? They just want to say, hey, I've applied. I'm like, okay, great. But I'm not the one who interviews. I'm the one that brands and makes awareness. The interviewers actually, recruiting interviewers do that piece, right? And so I can simply forward that note to them. But if it just says, hey, I've applied and nothing really else in there, then for them, it's not going to really stand out. So asking those really robust questions, or saying, your why about the company or that position, anything to really make you stand out.
I think on the interviewer side, so I'm not part of our talent recruiting team. I'm part of the team that usually will be doing the interviews, whether it's first or second level interview. I'm kind of old school. Having a follow-up thank you for the time goes a really long way with me, especially if you've got something that we had talked about. And I chatted with a dozen candidates today, and you make mention of what it was specific about our conversation that you appreciated and that stood out. That helps me remember. I try to take really extensive notes, but I also try to be present in that moment when we're interviewing. So that help goes a really, really long way. I shared that story or the anecdote about the person that said, hey, I'd like to get in touch with somebody else. I think, I can't remember, Erica or Annie, that had said, hey, if you want to have a quick informational call with someone in IT, because they might have a little bit more insights as to what that role is like. It's not necessarily an interview. Those kinds of questions, great. Show me that you're interested. And then that follow-up in and of itself, now I have something in my inbox with your name that I've got an action item for where I can reach out to the recruiter and say, hey, yeah, this person was really good. And now I've got them following up, showing me that they're interested. This is someone that we want to move forward with for a second round of interviews or whatever it may be.
Michelle, do you have anything you wanted to add to that?
No, I think that Erica and Annie and Dan pretty much said exactly what I would say. Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I have to say, before we segue into questions, this is the highlight of my week because I see we have about 50 students participating, and you all have given such great advice, but it's really inside information, right? That has incredible value for students because they kind of see how things work from an employer perspective or interviewer's perspective. So it's super valuable. So thank you all, and students, thank you for being here. I see we have a lot of questions. I'm going to segue now to Sloan and let her read the first question. We may not get to all of them, but we'll do our best.
Yeah, so the first question is from Kaylee, and she says, will your company offer remote internships this summer? I know that some companies I've looked at on Handshake have shifted towards more remote internships due to COVID.
Sherwin-Williams internships will be in person. As I mentioned at the beginning of the call, you're working in the retail stores, and our stores currently are open, taking safety precautions, but we are open. So our internships will be in person.
And our internships are very interactive. You're on and off of our equipment. You are answering the phone, so you're at a branch. So ours will be in person as well. The one thing we kind of changed last year was there typically was a time where you would spend time with the district sales manager, or an outside sales rep kind of going around with them. We didn't really do that this summer. We're hopeful to do it again next summer, but time will tell. But ours will definitely be in person with social distancing and all the proper safety precautions, of course.
Vanguard's internship for next summer is still undecided. We did go virtual for this past summer, and if conditions do not improve with our environment, we are prepared to do virtual for 2021. But for right now, we're saying it could be either or, but we're prepared to do either one.
Yep, and RSM is in the same boat as Vanguard. We did virtual internships in 2020, hoping to be able to do them in person in 2021. Either way, those internships consist of a rotational program. We try to get you plugged in to at least 3 different projects throughout. It is client facing. When they're in person, you have the opportunity to travel and go to those client sites. So it really is exciting. Hopefully we can be in person at that point so you all can experience everything that has to offer.
Yeah, that's awesome. We have another question from Bethany, and I think a few of you guys already hit on this a little bit, but she asks, what questions do you as employers like to hear from us as applicants?
I want to hear any question that shows me that you're applying yourself and seeing yourself at that company, right? So I totally understand being in your shoes. The burning question is, what are you going to do when you graduate? How are you going to find a job, make ends meet, and all these things? But also applying that to, are you a good fit for the organization? That shows me that you're in demand, right? Because you're trying to find the right fit for you, not just so much the one that's willing to accept you. So try to poke around, figure out what the organization culturally is like. Show me what you exemplify as a person and why you're a good fit there through your probing questions.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think too, I think it was Erica that brought up, if you're interested in culture, if you're interested in how you, especially with everything that's going on in our country now with the Black Lives Matter movement, if you happen to be a person of color and you want to ask, hey, what's your diversity like? That's a perfectly acceptable question now. We are a construction company. We do have women in construction, and we really, work to diversify our company. So asking those types of questions is going to show me that you're looking at my company as a career, just not a job. And that's really going to stand out to me. I'm going to remember you. I'm going to remember, oh yeah, you know, they asked about this, this, and this. They asked about what kind of community involvement we do. They asked about this. They asked about that. Okay.
I think the overarching theme too is ask questions you actually care about, because we can tell the difference from you just Googled top 5 questions to ask in an interview, you're asking them and not listening to our answers, or it's something you actually care about and you're actually taking this seriously. And like they were saying, you're thinking of it as a career. We can tell the difference. So it's really up to you what questions you ask, but make sure there's something you really want to know the answer to.
Right, and don't be afraid to inquire about the interviewer. When I was interviewing with Vanguard, I had met with someone who was with the company for 15 years, right? And so I guess I did come prepared with questions, but after knowing that, I asked them, like, how have you seen Vanguard change in the last 15 years, and where do you see it in the next 5, right? So don't be afraid to inquire about the interviewer's experience. I think, you know, more than any other questions about just general Vanguard, that will really resonate well with the interviewer.
Yeah, I think all of that is really great. And I think the next question actually kind of ties into that a little bit. And Noah asks, what are some small details that you believe make a candidate stick out in a virtual environment?
I have one really quick, small detail, really simple one. Is LinkedIn networking when you're connecting with someone. Let's say, for example, for this event, you have 4 great panelists here. Add a quick note when you're sending that connection saying, hey, I participated in this event and I really enjoyed hearing from you. And because on our end, we get a lot of connections from many people, many students, many other school partners. But if we can see that note like, oh, okay, this student met with us in this event or at this career fair, that really sends a, you know, a great message with us to say, okay, we're really making a difference. And then again, being intentional, following up with a question for that connection, right? I would love to learn more about X, Y, and Z, or I would love to, you know, learn more about your career journey. So sending a note will send a really great message for me. I still have so many pending requests. I usually accept everybody, but those that send that extra message, I accept like immediately.
Be authentic. I think it's a lot easier when you're in person to let your personality shine. RSM is a very cultural driven company. You know, a lot of the times, you know, we identify individuals that have, you know, strong talent, but it might be like a diamond in the rough, or it is, you know, consulting in nature, a lot of what we do. So the expectation isn't necessarily that you come in knowing everything. The differentiator is who you are as a person. How you're going to fit in both with our team as well as, you know, our client portfolio. And getting that across in a virtual environment is probably a little bit more difficult. So finding a way to exemplify that really is what's going to set you aside. And it sounds like a really small, nuanced thing, but I'm not sure it's the easiest thing in the world to do. So practice what you're talking, be comfortable with who you are and what you're looking for in a company, and make sure that comes across.
Yeah, I would agree. I would practice before going into the career fair, you know, making sure that, again, you have that proper background, you have that proper lighting, you're centered in the photo, you know, you don't have anything obstructing you in the background, because then you're going to stand out as a professional. I'm going to look at you and I'm going to say, wow, they're pretty professional. But if it doesn't look that, if it looks like you just rolled out of bed and hopped on the computer, we're going to know that. We're going to know if you're prepared or not. You can't really cover that up. It's just like at a career fair, when you don't know how to walk in your high heel shoes, it's the same concept. So.
Yeah, some advice that I always give candidates, and they think I'm joking, but this is serious, that recruiting and interviewing is very much like dating. So you don't go on a date with somebody and say, I'm really open to dating anyone. I'll take anyone now as a husband. That'll be fine. We don't want you to say that to us either during these conversations and during these interviews. We want to know why you want to work specifically for our company. Make us feel special, like you're on a date. Because if you just come in and say, I just need a job, I really just need a job, I'm graduating, it does not come across well. It makes you sound very desperate and like you're willing to just take anything. So make sure, as you've done your research on Google really quick or maybe very extensively, you have found why you want that job. And I think somebody put a question in here about your elevator pitch. and I'm sure we'll get to that. But at the end of that elevator pitch, you say, and this is why I want to work for you in this specific job. So just make sure not to keep it broad.
Yeah, I think that's all really great. The next question is a little more specific. Rachel asks, what's the best way to answer the interview question, tell me about yourself? Are recruiters looking for accomplishments, skills, personality traits? What do you guys think is the best way to answer that?
That is my favorite question when phrased correctly. It's definitely ambiguous to say, tell me about yourself. I don't like asking that of other people, and so I hope that's not what's asked of me. But asking how I got to where I am, what I've done, makes me see that you are, want to emulate that. You want to have a career you want to progress through, and that you're looking for opportunities to learn. So asking where I specifically started out, what were pivotal moments in my career that made it so that I've, succeeded or stayed with the company. One, that's gonna make me feel kind of good that you want my insights. And then two, like I said, it makes me see that you're trying to learn through this. And it seems like a genuine question.
I think creating an elevator pitch, like Annie was saying, hi, my name is Michelle Montoya. I am a senior at App State. I am a chemistry major, and I'm looking to work, I'm looking for, a research position. That kind of is going to tell me first, your year, it's going to give me a lot of information to kind of start that conversation. And then my next question to you most likely will not be, tell me about yourself. It's going to be, okay, it's going to be something related to what you have said. Okay, so tell me a little bit about maybe some of the internships that you've done related to chemistry. So I like that, when you introduce yourself, hi, my name is Michelle. It's 30 seconds, your year, your major, kind of, if you're a junior, I'm looking for an internship, just something quick so that I don't have to say, tell me a little bit about yourself. Because I don't really like to say that. I kind of like to know a little bit about you to kind of frame a different question, a more targeted question.
Okay, the next question I really like, and I think it ties into, what Erica was talking about a little bit ago. Taylor asks, do you think that reaching out through physical mail rather than email, since employer emails might get flooded, would be better, or would that be appropriate? I remember, Erica, you were talking about a note goes a really long way, so I thought that tied back into that really well.
That is a great question, Taylor. I would say I don't know where the other companies are, but Vanguard, we're completely virtual, about 95% virtual. So physical mail wouldn't go too far with us, but beforehand, if someone did take the time to write out a letter, we would take pictures by it. If we really enjoyed that, because who does that these days, right? We just text and email. So I still think for, those companies that are back in the office, physical letters are nice. They're very nice to have. And, I still have some physical letters still at my desk, pinned up on my wall. But I still feel like emails are just as nice if they're worded, not correctly, but worded nicely. They can easily be forwarded to our managers or senior managers for hey, look at me, I'm great, right? And the student loves Vanguard or whatever company. So either could work, but for now, don't send anything to Vanguard's mail, because I'm not going to get her. No one else is going to get it anytime soon.
Yeah, I would have to agree, the email. And I think if you take the time to send the email and say, hi, my name is Michelle. I met you at blah, blah, blah. I am blah, blah, blah. Not just, so that I can remember you. Because like everyone else has said, we're going to talk to a ton of kids, a ton of students. And we're not going to remember all of our students. But when you send that thank you, you're now going to stand out. And I typically, if I get an email from a student, I'm going to go through and pull out their resume automatically. And I'm going to look at their resume a little more, because they took the time to email me. So that tells me they're interested in United Rentals.
Something to be aware of too is if you're going to send a note during the interview process, of asking them when you can expect a response. Because if I say, hey, I'm going to get back to you tomorrow, your letter probably isn't going to make it to me by the time I've made my decision. So an email would work best in that situation. But if I say, oh, I'll get back to you in 2 months, then you have time to send a letter. So think about that as well when you're doing that.
Yep, I think those are all really good points. I don't think I have anything to add to it.
Yeah, that's great. We have another question. I'm not sure if any of you all can answer this, but I'm going to read it anyways just to see. McKinley asks about CIS majors and what's the best way to start applying for positions. Handshake is very broad with majors acceptable for positions. So where's a good place to start on picking a position that matches our experience in coursework?
And I think that's more a question for me or my colleague Amy Erdem in a career coaching setting. So we will get back to you and give you advice about that. But let's see if there are any other questions for our panelists while we still have them here.
Yes, so our next question from David says, every employer is coming to the career fair with a targeted role they are seeking. If I think my skill sets will be better suited for another role not specifically stated in Handshake, does this mean they will not or are not available?
That's a really good question, because I only post, we're going to put in our entry-level roles, and they may change. We may have, a different role available, but at least for United Rentals, we're really looking for 2 specific roles, possibly, well, really 3 specific roles for entry-level students. But that doesn't mean that we don't have other roles. We just don't maybe not have a lot of opportunity for those other roles, so they may not be posted. So I would always ask. It can't hurt. Now, I wouldn't ask, United Rentals, do you have any nursing positions? Because I'm going to look at you and get big heads. But if you say, do you have anything in marketing? That's perfectly acceptable. So kind of know the industry that you're inquiring about and making sure that that question matches with the industry as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That question that I keep referring back to, the student that really impressed me and said, hey, can I network throughout your organization? I think that's another great way to do it. If you do an informational session and you let them know, hey, these are my areas of focus, this is my interest, come to that interview prepared to ask questions for the position that was explicitly listed. And if at the end, you identify that this may not be a perfect fit for you, but that company is something that was definitely on your radar, a follow-up question of, hey, thank you for your time. Would you mind putting me in touch with someone in whatever organizational unit? I mean, obviously, if you're interested in like public accounting and consulting industries, but you're more aligned with a technology consulting where you're doing system implementations, things like that for the more computer science focused versus CIS, that's something that we do. If you're more finance focused, we have those opportunities, but that's just not something that we have a lot of. So those aren't usually the ones that we advertise for at the career fair. So show me that you're interested, come prepared, and then no harm, no foul if you say, hey, I'd also like to be connected to other people within your organization.
Yeah, I'll add just really briefly, if it's not on Handshake or you find the role through like vanguardjobs.com, that typically means that it's more of a junior level to senior level type of position. We post all of our entry level and internship opportunities through Handshake or that career platform, whatever career fair platform. So I get a lot of students who are really interested in data analytics. And although we do have that is a more junior level position. And so I always struggle with my conversations with students there because yes, we have it. Yes, it's on our website, but you're not quite qualified for that specific position yet.
I think we probably have time for one last question before we segue to the last part of our presentation.
Yeah, so our last question is from John. And it says, are submitting virtual portfolios alongside a resume and catered cover letter more attractive to recruiters than someone who just turns in a resume and cover letter?
I personally think it doesn't matter, but a cover letter is going to kind of show me how you write and how you organize your thoughts in your grammar. So if you have a cover letter, that's great. If you don't, that's also fine. But I will tell you, if you're going to send me a resume and a cover letter, you're going to want to also email me and say, hey, I met you at the career fair. because chances are I might not get to both, to read both. I'm not going to lie to you, but if you have a prepared cover letter, it's perfectly fine to send it. But that resume is really what, at least what we're looking for. Because I might get a stack of 50 resumes. So, you know, sending that email and saying, hey, I also gave you a cover letter. I'm going to dig through that pile and pull you out and read you.
Yeah, I don't want to speak for our recruiters, not to discourage anyone from a cover letter. I think it's fantastic if you're putting the effort in and the situation dictates. Specific for, you know, my company, that's not something that's necessarily required. If I'm talking with quite a few students, I would say align your focus more on the resume and the questions that you're preparing in the interview and how you're going to perform in that interview versus the time that you would put into a cover letter. I'm also gonna have an opportunity to see your business writing if you send that follow-up email. So make sure you put some thought into that and it's not formatted in like almost like a text. Thanks so much, TTYL. That sort of thing is gonna go a little bit farther with me than a cover letter.
I think a cover letter is helpful if you're applying to roles that don't naturally align with your major. So say you're an accounting major, but you've decided you don't really want to be in accounting. You just finished out your major because you didn't want to graduate a year later and you wanted to finish your bachelor's degree and you really want to go into sales roles. For me, normally if I saw accounting, I'd be like, they're not really interested in these sales roles, but you could use a cover letter to explain something like that of, hey, I actually have sales experience. You could see I'm an accounting major, but I actually want to go the sales path with the skills I've learned from that major. So if you need to explain something, maybe that's like a little funny on your resume, the cover letter is also a great place to do that.
Totally agree with you, Annie. Especially for those who are experienced hires or experienced students. If you're returning to school and maybe you have a gap in your work history, or if you've switched your major, like any story you want to tell, highlight that on your cover letter. I had a situation where my colleague, she was an IT recruiter, and the candidate had a 10-year gap in their work history. And he didn't have a cover letter, but in his communication with the recruiter, he shared that, you know, he took that 10-year gap to help out his son who had cancer, right? So, but he was getting overlooked by so many other companies because of that 10-year gap. So she, you know, we ultimately ended up hiring him, but she suggested to him, like, create a cover letter and tell your story, right? Because if you feel like that 10-year gap is hindering you, then filling it in with that background will help recruiters understand.
So we're going to say thank you. I think in a normal setting, we would all applaud you because you have given us your time and it's been incredibly valuable information. So thank you all so much for being here and helping our students feel more prepared for this virtual fair. I know we have a lot of unanswered questions, so I will figure out a way to get you answers, students, don't worry. But if students, you will stick around, I have about 3 slides to quickly show you that have resources that will show you how to build your schedule and feel like you're really prepared next week for the fair. So we'll say goodbye to our panelists. Thank you so much. Have a good evening, good rest of your week. Thanks again. And we will see you soon at the virtual fair.
Yep, thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely.
Thank you, everyone. See you at the fair.
So students, I will share my screen really quickly and show you what I wanted to show you before you leave. So of course, our panelists and important student information. So if you have not already registered for the career fair, you need to do that. And you go to our website right here. This is being recorded, so you'll have all of these links and be able to access them, but you go to our main webpage. And what's really amazing, if you haven't already seen it, is we actually have a spreadsheet where all of the companies who are coming are listed, including all the majors they're recruiting for, if they're hiring part-time or full-time or internships. And so I encourage you to start there to do your research so that your schedule that you have planned is very deliberate and targeted. Like the recruiters were saying, this is really to your advantage. You can know exactly who you're going to talk to when and have all your research done and it can be really focused and specific, no standing in lines, no being intimidated because you're in the convocation center with 1,200 students and over 100 employers wondering where you should start. So I think it's really going to be a valuable experience for you. And then you have two other opportunities to get yourself in front of employers. Again, make that impression stand out. A lot of companies, and they're listed here, and you can go to our website to sign up, they're offering mock interviews. So these will be 30 minutes long, 20 minutes of questions, and 10 minutes of feedback. And what's great about that is it's not a real interview. It's a good idea if you would make a good impression that you know something about the company when you go in, right? So again, you make that good impression, but you will get feedback, but it's also often something that can lead to a real interview if you make that good impression. So I encourage you to take advantage of that. We also have a resume drop where you can submit your resume to specific companies that you're interested in. That, as well as the mock interviews, that registration closes on the 27th of September. So you still have a little bit of time to get that done, but I would encourage you to go ahead and do that. And then last but not least, well, actually 2 more slides. Sign up for workshops and panels. So we have these employer panelists coming to speak about a variety of professional development topics on September 30th and October 1st. These you do not have to register for in advance. The Zoom links will be posted and you can just attend the day of, but we encourage you to go ahead and sign up if you like to, but see who is speaking, because there are some faculty-led sessions that are industry specific, as well as professional development sessions. Another 2 sessions of how to work a virtual career fair, so you can get different advice from different recruiters. But again, incredibly valuable way for you to engage virtually. And then finally, we've got a couple videos that my colleagues have made that will tell you how to register and set up your schedule. They're very short, just a few minutes long, but they will show you visually what it looks like when you go into Handshake and you set up your schedule. It's very straightforward. And then if you want to try a test run, tomorrow is actually the internship and job fair from 12 to 3 p.m. So you can actually go to Handshake, register for that fair and try it out, right? It's a low stakes experience and will give you a feel for a virtual fair before the real business career fair, Walker Business Connections, starts. So I'm really glad to see such great attendance. I appreciate your attention and your good questions. Like I said, we will look at the chat and try to answer all of your questions that didn't get answered. Big shout out to Sloan for being a wonderful Zoom co-pilot. Thank you, and we will see you at the career fair.
Veronica, we have one question that says, will this PowerPoint be available for us to look at, and where can it be posted if so?
Yes, we will figure out a way to post that. I'm not sure how we access it when we have the recording, which will be posted in about 24 hours on the website where all the webinars are listed, but I will let you know. I think I can email you participants a link at the very least. So we will figure that out, but we will get you the information that you need. Thank you for that question, Sloan. All right, goodbye everybody. Have a good night. See you soon.
Thank you.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.